Hi everyone, welcome to another Yarn Scrap Friday with me, Laura, and today we're doing a little special tutorial in honor of the Queen. I've designed this cute little regal crown, this tiny little crown, so let's begin. Okay, so for this tutorial we're going to be using 3 colours. We're going to be having a very regal purple colour, and I'm going to be using a sort of grey silvery colour and some white as well. And this is a sport baby weight yarn, so it's a yarn weight of 2, so quite a thin yarn. And with that I'm using a 2mm crochet hook. So, but you can use any yarn that you like and any hook that's suitable for the yarn you're using. It's also a good idea to have a yarn tapestry needle as well, and also a pair of scissors. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with the purple first. So we're going to take our purple yarn and work a slip knot. And we're going to do a chain 4 loop. You can of course use the magic circle as well, but for beginners I'm just going to work a chain 4 loop. So we're going to chain 4, 2, 3 and 4. Then we're going to put our hook into our first chain, bring the yarn through and then straight through the loop on your hook. We've got a tiny little loop of chains, and into there we're going to start off with a little chain 1, don't count that as a stitch, and then going into the center of your 4 chain loop, so careful not to go into the first chain hole, we want to go into the center. We're going to do, how many are we going to do? 7 single crochet, so this pattern's in US terminology, so in UK terms that's 7 double crochet. So 7 single crochet, so that's 1, just wrapping it around the chains. I'm going to carry this tail end as I go as well. 1 and another 1, 2, I'm using a very stringy yarn which is not helpful, 2 and another 1, 3, so we want 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, and one more, 7. Okay, so we've got 7 single crochet. Because I've carried that tail end, I can pull that in a little bit at the center hole. Then we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet. So find your first single crochet and just slip stitch into there to join the round. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to chain 1 and going back into the same stitch we just slip stitched into, go back into there, go back into that single crochet. We're going to do 2 single crochet in there, so an increase. So 1 and another 1 in the same stitch, 2, and we're going to work 2 single crochet in each stitch around, so we end up with a stitch count of 14, but we're also going to do something a little extra at the end, so just don't skip ahead too much. So 2 single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochet in the next stitch, so 2 single crochet in each stitch around. Again, that's gone stringy. Play nice yarn, please. Okay, so when you get to the last stitch here, we do 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and then we're going to do something pretty unusual. So normally what I say is this stitch here, it looks like another stitch, is what I call the fake stitch. It's actually your previous slip stitch, and we normally skip that, but this time we're actually going to go into that very last fake stitch and do 1 single crochet, just 1 single crochet, and that makes our stitch count go from 14 to 15, and then we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet to join the round. Okay, round. So by the end of that round, you should have a stitch count of 15. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a chain 1, and going back into the same single crochet you just slip stitched into, we're going to do 1 single crochet, and we're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 15, and we're going to do that for 3 rounds. Okay, 3 rounds. So 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 15. Do that for 3 rounds. So I shall do that, and I shall come back. Okay, just going up to the end on the 3rd round, and we just slip stitch to join in our first single crochet to join the round. Okay, so that's the end of the last round. So 3 rounds with just 1 single crochet each stitch round, and it should pop out in this direction. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut our yarn and just pull that through, and we'll do a nice neat finish by threading on our yarn needle. What we're going to do is, this was the single crochet we slip stitched into, so we're going to sew into the next one to the back, to the inside, bring that over, and then going back into your stitch just in the back loop only, we're going to sew to the back as well, and that creates a nice neater finish. And then we're just going to trim that down a little bit and hide the tail end on the inside. We're going to keep this one a little bit long for now. I'll explain later. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our silvery grey coloured yarn, and we're actually going to work some slip stitches in the opposite direction. So before we were working in this direction, now we want to work in this direction. So what we're going to do is turn your little crown upside down, and going into one of the stitches from the front here, and then come out in the next stitch like this. Okay, so you're just going to find one of the stitches, and you're going to go in from the front out through the next one like this. So it's a little bit unusual, and there's a reason why. We want to create some slip stitches, and we're going to bring our yarn through like so, and then we're going to secure with a chain 1, which is going to look like a slip stitch. Then the next one, we go in where this yarn is coming out, and then come up through the next stitch. Bring the yarn through, and then straight through your loop on your hook. Not helped by my stringy yarn. And then again, you see where this is coming out, we go in there, and then we come out through the next stitch. Grab the yarn, bring it through, just feel it through, and then through the slip stitch on there. And just do this all the way around until you've got 15 slip stitches. Okay. So just working the last one, so this is number 15. Oh, typical. Goes really well off camera, and then goes all stringy on me on camera. Naughty yarn. And when we're back at the beginning, we're going to find our first slip stitch, and we're going to just slip stitch into the back loop. Okay, so just into the back loop of our first slip stitch, just slip stitch into there. Okay, so you've got something that looks like this, hopefully. And I'm just going to bring up a loop, and what I'm going to do is just this tail end, which is stuck on the outside, I'm going to thread to the inside, otherwise it will get in the way. So we'll just push that down onto the inside. And then trim that down. Okay, so that's a little bit neater. Then we're going to carry on, rejoin your hook. And what we're going to do, now we've slip stitched, is we're going to chain 2, so chain 1, chain 2. we're going to slip stitch into the first chain here, slip stitch into there. Okay, then we're going to chain 1, slip stitch into that first chain again. We're creating like a little royal picot, I would call it. And then chain 1 again and slip stitch in that first chain again. Okay, and it creates this kind of triangle shaped picot. And making it face the right direction, we then find the next slip stitch, and we're going to slip stitch in the next 3 back loops of these slip stitches. So slip stitch in the next back loop, slip stitch in the next back loop, then slip stitch in the next back loop, okay, in the next 3. And then we repeat the same steps here again. So we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. I'm going to slip stitch into that first chain. Then we chain 1, we slip stitch in that first chain again. Then we chain 1, slip stitch in that first chain again. Okay, so we slip stitch in there 3 times and then find the next fresh slip stitch on here, and we slip stitch in the next 3 but just the back loops. Okay, slip stitch in that back loop, slip stitch in the next back loop, and slip stitch in the next back loop, and then repeat. So we chain 2 and do our next picot, and just repeat that all the way around back to the beginning. So next one we chain 2. Okay, so I shall do that and then come back, slip stitch in the first chain, chain 1, slip stitch in that first chain again. Then one more time, chain 1, slip stitch in that first chain, and then find the next 3 slip stitches and slip stitch in the next 3 but back loops only, and repeat. Okay, you should end up with 5 of these royal picots. Okay, just going up to the last few slip stitches, so you should end up with, every time I go back on camera it goes stringy, you should end up with 2 slip stitches left. So slip stitch into the back loop of the next one, and then the last one slip stitch into there. Then we're going to cut our yarn, we're going to leave a little bit of a tail. So what we want to do is flatten these down a bit, so let's pull that through. And as you can see, these are sticking out, so we want to sew these against the purple part of the crown. So just thread this on. And what we're going to do is, first of all, just going to sew to the back as neatly as we can, just to bring that in. Okay. And what we're going to do, behind this picot, maybe 2 rows up, we're going to come through a stitch here and grabbing a little bit of yarn just on the back of your picot, we're going to use that to pull that onto, secure it onto the purple, and then we're going to go back in the same stitch and then find your next picot, 2 rows up, come out through that stitch. Okay, so that should, make sure that doesn't get, there we go, and then that secures the little picot against the purple, and do the same for the next one. Grab a little bit of yarn and then go back into that stitch and find the next picot, 2 rows up, and do the same thing, and then do that all the way around. And you can see that joins the crown parts together. and then we finish up with the tail end on the inside, and we can trim that down and hide any remaining tail end on the inside. Okay, so it's nearly finished. What we're going to do now though is just going to grab the white yarn, and we're going to rejoin the white yarn, if I can find the end of the white yarn. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we are just going to find one of these previously skipped front loops when we were working this second row of grey. So just pick one of these silver front loops we skipped and join your white yarn into there with a little chain 1. And then work your chain 1. And then we're just going to slip stitch in the opposite direction to the silver now. So now we're going back the same direction as the purple. We're going to find the next front loop that we skipped here and work a slip stitch into there. And then do that all the way around. Find the next front loop we skipped and work a slip stitch into there. And just work that all the way around. It should look like this. Okay, so when you get to the end, what we're going to do is cut our yarn and thread it onto a yarn needle and find the second slip stitch that you made and sew into that. Okay, and then come back to, it's a bit hard to see in the white, but come back to this stitch and just go into the back loop, it's like I always teach now, and just pull that, and that creates a nice smooth finish, which is actually quite hard to see with the white. And then we're just going to sew the white onto the inside a little bit, trim it down and hide any tail ends on the inside. And there we go, there is our finished miniature tiny crown. But we've still got a little bit of purple yarn left that I said to keep, if you remember. So if you remember this purple tail end, what we're just going to do with this is we're going to thread this onto a yarn needle. You probably don't need to do this, but I'm just going to sew up through the middle and go back down through the middle, but slightly to the side, and then over to the other side, maybe here, then out through the middle. And that just grabs the end and it just pulls the center down just a little bit, just to get that sort of crown shape a little bit. Then we just hide the tail end on the inside. You can just sort of shape it. You probably don't really need to do that, to be honest. It's nice to create more of a little flat top to the crown. Let's go with the other crown. And there we go, that's our finished, very British, very regal crown. And do let me know in the comments below how the Queen's passing has affected you, whether you are a royalist or not a royalist. And I was actually quite surprised by my reaction. I'm not a huge royal family fan, but I cried. I think it's such an end of an era. So yeah, I hope she rests in peace. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along, and don't forget to check out my Member Plus area on my website. A huge thank you to my current members for helping make these video tutorials possible. But I will see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun, and maybe next week I might design a little corgi to go with this crown. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, stay tuned, make sure to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun. Thanks for watching, bye!